restorative justice is also, let's say, beyond the times of transition. For example, when we say, okay, we have also made the transitions from war to peace or from dictatorship to democracy, and then after 5 years we live in peace, we have democracy, but we have maybe some similar problems. For example, direct violence is going on, or deep structural problems, or cultural violence, discrimination, racism.
Hallo liebe Zuschauer und liebe Zuschauerinnen. Wir sind heute in... Okay, so let's start in English instead.
Yeah.
So, my name is Gat, the moderator today. Sorry for my broken German. But because our guest today is from Germany and he is now with us today, please welcome and give a big applause to Andreas. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Andreas Riemann, is the second name. I'm from Germany, from Hamburg to be exact. This is in the north of Germany. I'm coming from a social work background. I have worked for the last 15 years in Latin America, in countries like Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia and Ecuador. And I have a master's degree in peace and reconciliation studies, so I work in peace building. Also, I have worked in human rights, and I'm also a trauma counselor. I'm here because I presented myself for the Rotary Peace Fellowship at Chulalongkorn University in like 2 years ago, and I was selected, and I'm spending the last 5 weeks of the fellowship here in Bangkok with the people of the Rotary Peace Center.
So, the next session we will ask you about your research. What is your research?
Yeah, the thing is, I started to work in Latin America 15 years ago. I got to know the concept of transitional justice, which is a form of justice that comes into consideration when we think about changes from war to peace or from dictatorship to democracy. And there is another concept which is called restorative justice, which is in a way like a brother or a sister of transitional justice. And it's a form of justice that is used when harm is done, but when we look for other answers than the typical punitive answers. So it's about processes where we as human beings can learn and grow, and we can repair harm and restore relations to create a better future. And this has roots in the prison system, especially in countries like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, USA. But it is very close to indigenous thinking and acting, very close to indigenous cultures. So it is it's a social science that has also connections to indigenous roots. Yeah. And I have worked with these restorative justice instruments, especially in the last 6 years in a country in South America, the southern part of South America, in Bolivia. And it's a country with 36 different indigenous groups, 2 big ones, the Aymara and Quechua, and 34 a little bit, sometimes tiny groups. But I have worked with the Aymara population in an educational, with an educational focus at schools, with a partner organization who works in violence prevention at schools. And we used restorative practices and also peer mediation, forms of mediation, so that young people can, when there's a conflict, so that they can act and to bring peace to the community and bring peace to the people involved in the conflict.
So the topic, it seems like it is not a very easy or first topic that someone choose to study. Why do you choose this topic to doing a research?
It all comes from the idea of peace building, and in my family, I'm 54 years old. I was born in 1968, and in my family, the legacy of the Second World War was always very visible because my father, he was a refugee. He came from the socialist Germany to the capitalist Germany in 1953 when he was very young. So everything that happened in the war and the questions about war and peace and the problems of the world were always very present in my family. So in the 90s, when I was at university, I started to work in social justice issues. Especially, I was part of a movement that tried to stop the neo-fascists and the racists, and we were in the streets, sometimes even fighting. And this is the 90s were like the time when I got politicized, and I also knew people like refugees, especially from Latin America, from Peru, because there was a war going on in Peru between 1980 and 2000. So I got to know these people, and at a certain point of my life, I thought I had maybe the capacity to mediate things. And also in my family, I was always the mediator. So I thought maybe this is a good opportunity to think about going abroad and work for a better world, and work for peace and work for human rights. And this is when I started to develop this. And in 2007, I left Germany for Colombia.
Well, so before we talking about the implementation of restorative justice, I want to go back to if we implement the restorative justice, does it mean that we are indifferent or we are not doing about the transitional justice, or can be doing together?
It can be done together sometimes within a framework of transitional justice. There can be the instrument of restorative justice can be implemented. It depends on the situation, and it depends on the groups you are working with. But restorative justice is also, let's say, beyond the times of transition. For example, when we say, okay, we have also made the transitions from war to peace, or from dictatorship to democracy, and then after 5 years we live in peace, we have democracy, but we have maybe some similar problems. For example, direct violence is going on, or deep structural problems, or cultural violence, discrimination, racism. So you can use it in different spheres. It comes from the prison system, but it has developed very strongly in the last 15 years or so in school systems, from Alaska, Canada to Argentina. There's a lot of projects. This is why I wanted to show you this book. We have worked on a project about peer mediation and restorative practices in Bolivia, in the city of El Alto, which is a city of a big city, 4,000 meters above sea level in the mountains. And we have worked with this book, and we have worked with families and youth, students from indigenous families in schools, for example.
So just to summarize, is that both concept is somehow similar, but what different is that transitional justice is the concept mostly used when we have some transition, where restorative justice is a practice where sometimes it doesn't need some transitional, we can just start it. Your research is about a network to strengthen the restorative justice, right? So what kinds of network that you study in the research? Education system, isn't it?
Yeah, my idea, my original idea was to strengthen. I mean, there is networking going on, but there's also a lot of competition going on. You know, I mean, with NGOs, for example, even when we talk about peace building, there is so much to do to create peace, and people go on like this. And I think it's a little bit stupid sometimes. We have to learn to work together. We have to do it better. And I noticed this during my research. I noticed that it's quite hard to find people who really want to work together. In Germany, we say we make not so big bread. We have to make the bread a little bit like not so big brats. You know?
Okay.
So I thought maybe to rethink my idea. No? And what I'm working on is now a website, to create a website where we can work with different groups from different countries so that they can talk about what is going on in the world of restorative justice in their country.
So recently I just researched about the concept of restorative justice in Thailand, and mostly it is from the Ministry of Justice, just you earlier said, but most cases are based on the effort from the bureaucracy system to create and strengthen or even establish this concept to the society. But the problem is that I think that the concept of restorative justice needs to based on start from the community. Isn't it right?
Yes, it's right. And what I read about Thailand is that a lot of people know traditional or ancient instruments that are in a way almost the same as restorative justice. But for example, even in Bolivia or in countries that have been colonized, for example, people have forgotten about what they used to have. Thailand has never been a colony, so maybe it's still a little bit more present. People know these things. In other countries like Bolivia, not so much, but let's say maybe in a country like El Salvador, for example, where all the indigenous people have, almost 100% have been killed. People have forgotten about their traditional instruments. No? So restorative justice is quite well known in Thailand. But what I learned when I was reading about restorative justice in Thailand was that it's more or less seen as a reactive instrument. So when something happened, when harm is done, we could use restorative justice or restorative practices. But for me, the real potential in restorative practices is that we can use it also as a form of community building and violence prevention, for example, and harm prevention.
Yeah, so it is very interesting because nowadays Thailand has also faced the similar problem, and it is very much talk of the town right now. There is a huge wave among the youth generation to calls for the liberty in the school system, like no uniform or can wear whatever they want. But in the end, the Minister of the Education just regulated last year that the Ministry of Education will not say to allow or not allow to wear uniform. It is upon the decision of each school or each principal. So do you think that the concept of restorative practice can help in this situation?
Yes, absolutely. I think one very important thing is to ask ourselves, what are the authorities afraid of? Because normally they have their position and they said, this can't be done because of, but behind it there's always a certain interest and always a certain need of the authorities. So it would be interesting to know what are they afraid of, or what is really their standpoint. And on the other hand, it would be interesting to know why is it so important for the student or for the students to not wear a uniform. What do they think will be better? But we have to know it. We have to express this. We have to listen to each other to understand our standpoint. If we don't listen to each other and you say, oh, you're a young person, you're not allowed, you're only 14 years old, shut up, we will never know what is the motivation behind it.
In this case, to say, if I were in this school and I want to have the concept of the restorative practice into the school, how can I start it?
There is an institution which is called IIRP. It's called the International Institute of Restorative Practices. They are in Bethlehem, Virginia, in the United States. It's one of the most well-known, and from my standpoint, also one of the best international institutions, and they have a lot of information in English. Go there and look it up, and then you all will automatically find much more information on the internet. By try the International Institute for Restorative Practices.
Do you have anything to say to our audiences?
There's one important thing that we have to know as people who are already in our 30s, 40s, or 50s. No? Young people, the newer generation, the younger generation, they are always a little bit more revolutionary than ourselves because they are very young and they are the change. And I was young like in the 80s, and I was also part of subcultures and minority groups, and we did a lot of crazy things, but it was a lot of fun. And we didn't do it because we were bad people. No, we did it because we wanted to change the world. We wanted to change our own life, our own families, and it felt good. It was fun. And I think we as authorities, we also should think back about our own life, what was happening with us when we were 15 or 20 or 25. And I think we should be a little bit more open-minded to really listen to young people and understand what their concerns are and be good accompaniers. And then if we accompany them and if we listen to them, we won't lose them. But if we condemn them, we will lose them. And this is what's happening in many countries. We say, oh, this is bad what they do, they can't do this, how dare they? If we do this and we tell them that they shouldn't do it and that they are bad people, we will lose them. But if we accompany them and we say, okay, I'm with you, tell me, we won't lose them. And I think this is what we have to achieve as a society. Don't lose the youth.
Don't lose the youth. Yeah.
This is the book. Book is called Peer Mediation and Restorative Practices for Schools.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to study further about this concept, feel free to see in this book, and also the concept, they're available in English version, of course.
We hope.
This is all for our episode. Thank you very much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think this is all for our episode. So please see next on our next episode. So see you again. Bye-bye.